We have confirmed that they are recording this meeting. Again, I'm Lisa Turner. I'm the chair of the Grand Prairie Animal Shelter Advisory Committee. And welcome to our board meeting of August 20, 2020. In accordance with Texas Governor's March 13, 2020 disaster declaration and subsequent suspension of certain Texas Open Meeting Act provisions, the meeting of the commission is hereby called to order via conference call at 6:31 p.m. As this meeting is being held through conference, each speaker should announce their name before speaking every time you speak. The meeting will follow our printed agenda that is available online and was posted according to the Open Meetings Act. To begin, we will start with a roll call. If each board member would please say here when your name is called. Karen Tesmer.
Here.
Great. Raina Ross.
Here.
Great. Robin Gio.
It's Gio, and I'm here.
Gio, great. Marcia Patakowicz.
Close enough.
I know. Thanks, Marcia. Sorry.
Of course.
Tracy
That's
Owen.
Okay. Here.
Madeline Monroe.
Here.
Great. Any board members present that I did not call on? Great. So let the record reflect that including me, 7 members are present, and this satisfies our quorum requirement. I would like to, at this time, if we could, take a moment of silence. As many of y'all know, we lost Debbie Barclay on August the 2nd. And so on her behalf, I would like to take just a moment of silence. Thank you very much for that. We do have a new board member that we're pleased to have with us, Tracy Owens. If you would like to give just a brief introduction of yourself.
Sure, thanks. Appeal. So as soon as I knew I was going to have a term there, I reached out to Mike Dabowski, my councilman, asked what he had available, and I'm excited to be on the animal board. I've volunteered at the Prairie Animal Shelter. I've also fostered dogs from there before, so I'm excited to join everyone.
Great, we're excited to have you. Also, I believe Chief Dye might be with us. Is he on? And if so, would he like to say a few words? Okay, maybe he has not joined us yet. So in an effort to minimize any disruptions, we are going to adopt the following guidelines for this teleconference meeting. First, board members, staff, and citizens, if you could keep your phone muted at all times unless you're speaking, that way we will avoid background noise or inadvertently talking over one another. Secondly, city staff will present first on any agenda item. They will be the ones to present those. If a board member wishes to speak, please state your name after unmuted. Once I call on you, clearly state your name every time at the beginning. After the board finishes our discussion, I will ask for citizen comments. If a citizen does wish to speak, please state your name at that time and I will call on you. Each member of the public will have 5 minutes to speak with additional time allowed at my discretion. Once I call on you, please clearly state your name every time at the beginning. For each vote taken, I will call on each commission member and that person will state their vote. An extended pause during the voting will be provided to ensure that all votes are recorded accurately. And as we stated at the beginning, this meeting is being recorded and will be later posted to the Grand Prairie website. So with all of those ground rules in mind, let's start with agenda item number 1. That is the approval of the prior meeting minutes that I believe that we all had sent to us. Lily, is that correct?
Yes, it was in the calendar invite.
Terrific. Has everyone had an opportunity to read over those minutes? Are there any corrections to any of the minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt the approval of the prior meetings. Is there a motion to adopt the approval of the prior meeting minutes?
Karen Tesmer.
Okay, I have a motion. I think I heard a motion by Karen Tesmer to adopt the meeting minutes. Great. Is there a second?
Lena Rowe.
Okay, Lena Rowe, I think I heard. Is a second on that motion? I will call the roll in favor of adopting the meeting minutes. Karen Tesmer. If you could vote aye or nay.
Okay, I've lost this is Karen Tesmer. I've lost your voice.
I'm so sorry. We're
okay.
voting on adopting the meeting minutes. And so I'm going to call each board member, and if you could vote yes or no on the adoption of the meeting. Yes.
Yes.
Karen Tesmer is a yes. Raina?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Madeline?
Yes.
And this is Lisa Turner. I'm a yes. So we have adopted the meeting minutes. Now I am going to ask that the staff give the COVID-19 and limited operations update. Lily?
Thank you. This is Lily Yap. I'm the shelter manager. So given the amount of information we'll have to go over today, I wanted to give kind of an overarching update. Of course, we've been going through this since at least March, and it's really been a learning experience. I would say for the animal welfare industry as a whole, when COVID first hit, it was really amazing because I think traditionally shelters may have gone back decades and just moved to euthanize animals, but instead shelters across the nation asked their communities to step up and help, and it happened. Many shelters reduced field operations to emergencies only. They asked for fosters to minimize the on-site population. They took special care with their scheduling to minimize exposure risks amongst staff. And of course, those are things that we did in order to sustain our essential operations as well. So in general, in addition to the city safety policies that we took on, we went farther because we don't have the benefit of being reactive in a situation like this. If we have a shelter full of animals, like during our normal operations, and we have a staff exposure, it could not only be a bad thing for staff, but also be very detrimental to our on-site population. So in general, we were very focused on minimizing the animals on-site, as well as minimizing the risk to staff and the risk of spread. So we have been very fortunate, and again, our city has been very diligent in taking precautions. And through this time, we've gone back and forth between different types of operations, depending on how restrictive guidelines were, from the CDC and from our, city initiatives as well. So just to give kind of a very broad overview of what I like to call the roses and thorns of COVID, we got amazing support from our Grand Prairie community. So a lot of shelters, like I said, really did a call out for fosters. But we wanted to go farther than that. So we actually really promoted adoptions, because even with the foster program, as beneficial as it is to get animals out of the shelter on a temporary basis, it's even better to get them to their ultimate destination. And so with the support of our city manager's office and with our citizens, we were able to waive or reduce adoption fees to decrease those barriers to getting animals with their new families. And people really stepped up. I believe last time I checked, it was over 700 adoptions that we've done during limited operations since March. So a really amazing number. We did get a small grant to supplement the waived adoption fees from Best Friends Animal Society. That was the Rachel Ray grant, specifically for supporting shelters in these uncertain times. We were able to form new partnerships. So Meals on Wheels was hit pretty hard. They were not able to use their volunteer base anymore. So their deliveries for pet food were not going to happen in Grand Prairie. So we were able to step up and help make sure these families still got the food to help supplement the care for their pets. And we also developed some pretty innovative processes. So staff really thought outside the box, initially, and I'll go into more specific timelines when we're looking at the quarterly report. So we're looking month to month, but in our most restrictive time when this first started, we had a week where basically everything was just on a freeze. So we weren't doing adoptions. We weren't taking anything in unless it was a true emergency. But long-term, that wasn't a great solution, because that would mean the animals could have stayed from March until, the present. And that's, not a great quality of life for anyone. So one of the really amazing processes that our team stepped up to do were the tele-adoptions. So this was very interesting for us because, of course, traditionally, people come into the shelter, they meet with an animal, if they love them, they take them home. If it's not a good fit, they leave without an animal sometimes. With the tele-adoptions, we did the entire counseling process over the phone and sometimes over video chat if necessary. And then afterwards, if someone was comfortable moving forward, they would pull up curbside, we would bring the animal out to them, load them, and they were good to go. And something that really surprised us was that we did not see a substantial increase in returns. So this was really a pilot program that we were unsure about. And on the flip side, it actually seemed like the adoption counseling had more of an effect on people because they didn't have, their future animal right in front of them to distract them. So in a normal adoption, sometimes it's hard to listen to our staff members' recommendations when you're just so excited with that, new dog or new cat in front of you. But with the virtual adoptions, the focus was on that conversation and on the information that we knew about those pets. And it really produced some great matches. And part of our grant with the requirements of our grant with Best Friends was providing updates. And we had many to share. And it was particularly important for, some of our animals that don't show as well in the kennel. So we were very surprised at the benefits we saw from that. On the field side, we also moved towards virtual investigations where for some of the nuisance or non-emergent calls, we would look into our shelter software history to see if there was any matching we can do or any way we could find owners without having to do the direct face-to-face contact. So just really working as hard as we could to serve our community, but also keep everyone safe. And again, just a huge credit to staff for being creative and being, open to trying these new processes. We also had a pretty quick acceleration of our pet resource campaign. So of course, in these times where finances can be an issue for people, we want to provide as many resources as possible. And our most current operations involve providing resources for families to either help rehome their pets on their own or get connected to some of the resources in the DFW area because a lot of people are not aware of all the options they have. And so this really made us hustle on getting those resources together with our communications and marketing department. And we've developed some pretty great handouts to help people in supporting those situations so that animals may be able to avoid coming to the shelter altogether. So of course, on the thorn side, there are many negatives to COVID, but particularly for us here, like I said before, the necessary precautions were, we felt, more intensive for our department. And so, like I said, one of the scheduling precautions that we took was block scheduling so that even if we had a positive or even if we had an exposure, the most it could affect would be half of the staff members on site. And in that event, we would just use the other block to spread across for coverage. So an important aspect in cutting our staff numbers like that was staying within our capacity for care. Because now, of course, with the expansion, it was typical before to have 200 plus animals on site at any given moment. But when our workforce is cut in half, our population needs to be reduced as well. So when we looked at operations that would be more sustainable, we moved to a model where non-urgent cases would go on a wait list for intake. But instead of just, telling people no, we provided those resources immediately so we can empower our citizens to potentially help themselves and avoid having to bring the animals to the shelter at all. So we're working with our shelter software representatives to develop a report, because that data is very important for us to have, because we've never, been in a position to try something like this. And we're very curious to see, of those people that got on a wait list, how many actually had to bring their animals, or how many were able to find owners of animals on their own, or how many were able to rehome. So it was definitely a very new process for all of us, and it allowed us to maximize our life-saving capacity even throughout this pandemic. So there have been a lot of ups and downs, but our staff has really stepped up and embraced this challenge. So I would say that's the very overarching update as far as COVID and our limited operations.
Wow. Y'all are doing amazing work. Somebody's had 3 friends adopt from Prairie Paws during the pandemic. They could not rave enough about both the experience and their new fur babies. So thank you for that. Are there any board members who have questions on this topic?
Karen
Okay.
Tesmer.
Okay,
I don't have
Karen.
a question. Oh, I don't have a question, but I want to commend the shelter and their staff for doing such a wonderful job, and preserving the lives that they could. And the numbers look good, and the programs sound awesome. I mean, I was going, the teleconference basically, or Zoom video, with the animals, and that's a good idea. I think it was very good. I want to commend them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Any other board members? Are there any citizens who would like to speak on this matter? If so, please state your name. Okay. Well, I think we all second Karen's sentiments. Really great work. Next, Lily, I'm going to give it back to you to discuss the improvement projects and the kennel renovation.
Yes, this is Lily Yap. So wanted to give an update. These are 2 projects that have been in the works, but we have definitely had some good movement on. The kennel renovation is for our central kennel areas. We refer to them as East Large Dogs and West Large Dogs, that are part of the original 2003 construct. So these are the last dog kennels that are part of the original shelter, and have most definitely been in disrepair. And because of the age of the kennels, we don't even have the parts to really fix the kennels where we've needed to. So fortunately, we have already allotted funds to be able to update this area so that it's modeled after our newer kennels in the rest of the building. And we are looking to do this either in January or February. This was planned during normal operations, where those months are generally our lowest intake months. It was very tempting to try and plan something sooner, but because we don't know what cases will be looking like, we went ahead and stuck with that timeline. And we did meet with both our kennel manufacturer and our flooring guys, because we will be basically resealing the floor while we're doing the kennel renovation, so that that area will be completely finished. And it sounds like we will be able to get this project completed in about a month. That was the anticipated timeline. So good news is also that we are going to be able to split it into 4 different sections. Large dogs tend to be one of our highest, I guess, subpopulations on site. So them being able to break the project up like that will really help to minimize impact on operations, even if we're back to a full on-site population at that time. So that was very exciting news that we got after that on-site planning meeting. We have also submitted the purchase order to have our exterior perimeter wall updated. Right now it is crumbling in multiple places, which presents a safety risk not only for our staff, but also for patrons of Playground Adventures once it opens back up. And considering, the children that flock to that playground, it is especially important that we maintain the structural integrity of that wall. We also wanted to rebuild it so it would be aesthetically in line with the new concrete walls that go down Warrior. So after this project is done, it will not only look great, but will also maintain that safety aspect. So we are very excited about that one as well. And because it's an exterior wall, it will not have as much of an impact on our day-to-day handling operations. So.
Okay, this is Lisa Turner again. Are there any board members that would like to ask a question of Lily about that topic matter? Okay, hearing none. Any citizens who would like to ask staff a question about that topic matter? Hearing none, we will move to the program update. Maddie?
Hi, everybody. This is Maddie McLean, Program Supervisor for Prairie Paws. Thank you guys for being here. Lily really hit the nail on the head earlier when she was raving about our team and how they've really stepped up to make it work during this really weird time for us. Our adoption program has changed about, I don't know, it feels like 4 or 5 times during the past few months. We've changed our adoption processes, and we've just really, really challenged ourselves, and the result has been very surprising and very amazing. Most, unfortunately, of our normal programs are still suspended, including our jail dog Homes for Hounds program. Our volunteer program is mostly suspended, although we are currently in works to bring back some of our most experienced volunteers to help our staff out with some animal care, because we know that they miss our pups very much and that our pets miss them very much. So we've got a few long-term awesome volunteers who are working to get back on site, following our social distancing and block scheduling with our staff to continue to minimize risks to everyone. Also, our Petco adoption program, we are currently looking at getting volunteers back on board for that so that we can continue to showcase adoptable cats at the Petco location right down the street from us. So that has been a super awesome program since its inception at the late last year, and we've seen a significant number of kitties go to their new homes, even ones who were here with us for months and go to Petco and just get adopted so quickly. So we're sort of making that a priority as we're slowly and safely phasing back in a little bit with our sustainable operations. So hopefully Petco, we're expecting to maybe come back online pretty soon. Everything else will just kind of take it day by day as everybody is, and we're just really, really proud of our programs team and our staff in general. Our biggest, most exciting upcoming news is Clear the Shelters. For those of you not familiar with the Clear the Shelters event, it is a yearly nationwide event that a few hundred shelters now, I believe, participate in across the country. Normally, on a normal year, it is a one-day event where all participating shelters waive adoption fees, and we see crowds in abundance coming to find their new furry best friends, and it's always just a really great day of camaraderie and fun and life-saving. This year, of course, accumulating large groups of people in one place is not ideal, so the Clear the Shelter folks have extended it to an entire week. So next week, beginning on Tuesday for us, will be our Clear the Shelter week for 2020. Normally, waived adoption fees are the biggest draw for that event, but since we have been waiving our fees, as Lily mentioned, since our COVID operations, we don't necessarily have that perk, but we are to make the adoptions more accessible and give us the greatest opportunities to get kiddos out into their new homes. We will be doing our curbside tele-adoption model next week as opposed to purely on-site appointments. So people will be able to call in, we'll be able to chat with them about all the awesome pets that we have available. We'll make a great match and they'll be able to just drive through and pick up their new pets. And we also have some t-shirts come in that we're going to throw in as a bonus for them choosing Prairie Paws to support during our Clear the Shelter week. So we're sad that it won't be quite as fun-filled as a whole day's worth, but we're very excited to see what kind of impact this model has, and just really looking forward. We have a really awesome opportunity to potentially actually clear our shelter this year, since our capacity is fairly low right now with our efforts to minimize our on-site population with the increased adoptions and everything. So we're very, very hopeful that we might actually be able to clear our shelter this year. So that is all I have for program updates.
Thank you, Maddie. This is Lisa Turner again. Are there any board members who have a question for Maddie? Okay, hearing none. Any citizens who would like to address Maddie? Hearing none, we will go to operations updates. Dr. Rana?
Hi, this is Imran Rana, Operations Supervisor, and I have three different areas where I would like to touch upon. First of all, with our personnel updates. In our shelter side, we've had our senior ASO, Amelia, if you are familiar with that name, Amelia McLean. She retired and resigned from her position, and Officer Nicholas Bustos was promoted to that. And we found this leader, him, and also Rebecca, another senior from the shelter side, also is pursuing her veterinary technician career and had to resign to go and join a clinic. And another ACT, also a long time person here, has stepped up and been promoted to that position to fill in that leadership gap. They have both started off very well, and very pleased that they are on board. There have been other personnel changes which have given us an opportunity to reset our processes and reset how we do things. And good part of that is that we have had some successes and we are still struggling with the others. On our side, where we have the field office, we have almost 100% employment covered. All positions are filled. Out of those, because of COVID, we haven't had some of our officers not being trained out in the field because of the restrictions of riding in the trucks. Then we have 2 final trainees that will be onboarding, one on the 31st and one on the 14th of September, and that will complete our field staff 100%. This is excellent news because we have always struggled with having staff out there for the field work. Then I have on the medical side, we had full staffing. We had hired a veterinarian who last week had to pursue other stuff and resigned from the position. And we are pursuing, and we've advertised, again, to hire another veterinarian. We saw a huge difference of having a staff vet while she was here. Our number of TNRs in July were 100 cats, and we had almost no unsterilized animals among our shelter population. And we had another technician who worked as a bridge between the shelter and the clinic. And she also had to pursue other things, and she is also going to be leaving us in about another week. But we do have prospects lined up for equal or better qualifications that we will be pursuing here pretty soon. So very soon we will be completely filled up with the medical. The medical side, other than that, we have 3 very well trained techs, and we have a technician presence at the shelter now for 7 days a week. Not only that they are physically here in the daytime, we also have a coverage at night for one technician who is there to assist any after-hour calls and assist the field office. We have our internal programs that are going on with our staff at the shelter. There has been a great emphasis and an effort to have the dogs introduced and the play group program to be introduced, that we reintroduced that, what I should say. And as we speak, we have 90% of our eligible dogs that have been evaluated and charged with other animals right now, which is a very big achievement considering that we were working with half staff. Although the population is also half, but still it shows the diligence and perseverance of our staff to go and follow the guidelines and the leadership that Lily provides in these areas. We have been making a great effort in ensuring that the animals get to their owners, and we, with the help of our dispatch and also with our field office, we have been encouraging citizens, and we've been trying to match the citizens with the animals that they're missing, and encourage them to take it delivered to the citizen versus housing in the shelter. So, although we have certain setbacks, we're still making progress. We are going forward, and things are looking good for the future. There is not much more for me to report at this time, because I think Lily covered most of it.
Thank you, Dr. Rana.
One more thing I wanted to put out here is that our officers are now equipped with body cams, and this is not only for their safety, but it is also to have any event or incident that is lost otherwise, and he said, she said thing. So that is another step forward that we've had. For the communication tools, we have provided with our officers in the field with the city cell phone so that they can communicate among themselves as well as maintain a privacy when they have to call. Their personal privacy is protected that way, so they can call the citizens if they're having problems. So this is it.
Thank you, Dr. Rana. This is Lisa Turner again. Are there any board members who would like to ask the doctor any questions about the operations? Hearing none, any citizens who would like to ask Dr. Rana questions? Okay, hearing none, we will move to the breeding ordinance, which is next on the agenda. Lily?
Yes, this is Lily Yap again. So again, just wanted to give an overarching update. I did present the idea for the update to this ordinance to our Public Health, Safety, Environment Committee, but also wanted to get it on our board's radar, of course. Section 5-57 of our Chapter 5 Animal Services Ordinance is the only reference we have to the breeding of dogs and cats. And I'll go ahead and just state the ordinance because it's very brief, which is why we're excited to expand upon it. The owner of a female dog or cat in season commits an offense if he/she fails to confine such an animal in an anti-escape house, building, or enclosure in such a manner that the animal cannot come into contact with another animal of the same species and opposite sex, except for planned breeding. And before I was able to have a PowerPoint up on the screen, and I had a big line under the last part, except for planned breeding. So this ordinance specifically provides, I guess, a protection per se when it comes to people that are actively breeding their animals. Yet there aren't clear expectations other than state guidelines as to how this should be done. So we had a case that brought this to our attention and made us realize that this ordinance was lacking in this way. So what we propose and are still working with the city attorney's office to finalize verbiage on is a permit process. This permit process for breeders would have a pretty high minimum threshold. So it wouldn't apply to a lot of people. The minimum threshold would be either 12 animals or 2 litters from any given household. So it would only be required for people that were breeding animals beyond this amount within a 12-month period. So part of this process, or part of this permit, would require the owner to, of course, agree to abide by the provisions of Chapter 5 ordinances, and also allow us to inspect the property and animals upon request. The application requirements would include, basics like owner information, number of breeding females, and then get deeper into some safety and eligibility documents. So this is where we would have some barriers to entry when it comes to getting this permit, because this isn't about, us making money. So this permit isn't one that would cost someone something, but there would be pretty, like I said, high barriers to entry. So things that we were considering would be like National Kennel Club papers, approval by their veterinarian that their dog is healthy enough to breed, mandatory microchipping, and then of course rabies vaccination papers. So things like that where not everyone would be interested in pursuing this permit and would potentially reduce the breeding if they did not qualify. And then, of course, we looked at also prohibiting the sale of dogs and cats in the city. So prohibiting the sale on any roadside, public right-of-way, commercial parking lot, park or community center, places where people could sell animals and then, fall off the map and not have to be accountable to the people that are buying if there are issues afterwards. It's also, of course, hard to hold those people accountable for breeding standards when they're just pop-up shops like that. So, like I said, we're still working on the specific verbiage and applications that would be associated with this, but I definitely want to bring it to the board's attention so that you can know what we're working on to, again, provide some clearer expectations for, the small population of individuals that may be breeding in this amount. So.
Thank you, Lily. This is Lisa Turner again. I have a question, and then I'll call on the board to see if they have questions. I can see where the ordinance is written creates quite the loophole. Is this an attempt then to really kind of crack down on puppy mills and that sort of thing?
I would say that for the individuals breeding that in that amount, yes, because we serve an entire spectrum, of citizens in Grand Prairie. And even though, working in municipal shelters, I am not always the biggest fan of people, breeding their animals. I understand that it is important to some people, but I would say that there's a difference between, your animal having one litter and then an individual that has, 4 females breeding on a regular basis. So it's, beyond just the scope of the animals, but also, our neighborhoods, our communities, the people that have to live by that, when it may not be as much about just the human-animal bond, more about the monetary aspect. So basically, creating some structure to limit the ones that may be doing this for more profit incentives.
Totally makes sense to me. Are there any board members who would like to ask Lily questions about the breeding ordinance?
Yeah, it's Madeline Monroe.
Yes.
Okay, did I hear, who did I hear first?
Madeline Monroe.
Madeline?
Yeah.
Right.
I have a question. How are you going to be able to enforce this? It sounds great, but how are you going to be able to enforce it?
That is a wonderful question. This is Lily. So we have call histories in our shelter software, so it would be based on citizens' complaints. So say, I guess in my mind, we get a call from someone that says their owners have bred their animals and there's issues with the surroundings or whatever. So we go out there the first time, we can document that they have this many animals or this issue going on, and it's when it happens again that we would potentially be able to then cite, or I guess the third time, depending on how many females they had. So just like any of our other calls, it would be prompted by our citizens reporting that to us.
Okay.
Did I hear somebody else with a question, perhaps, of Lily?
Yeah, this is, yeah. Can I go ahead? Hi, this is Tracy. I had a question for Lily. I was just wondering, you said that the permit would only apply to folks who have more than 2 litters per household per year. Does that mean that, in theory, then a person could have 2 breeding females, each producing a litter a year, or one female breeding 2 litters a year? That would still be allowable without a permit?
Correct. So this is kind of our first step in the direction that we would like to go. But yes, technically someone would be able to stay just below that minimum threshold for sure.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
No problem.
Any other board members with questions for Lily about the breeding ordinance?
Karen Chesmer.
Okay. Oh, okay, Karen.
I want to thank Madeline. I had the same question as her about how are we going to enforce it. Also, these pop-up, like someone selling puppies out of the back of their car. I forgot already. What, like at Traders Village, how are y'all going to watch that kind of activity? Or is that already in the existing ordinance?
So this is Lily. That is a wonderful question, and actually we specifically reached out to the management with Traders Village to get clarification on how they screen their vendors that are selling dogs and cats, and we actually learned that they do not have cat breeders out there, and over the past 10 years they have actually created such stringent guidelines with the help of a veterinarian that they only have one person that is a vendor of that type right now. So what this adjustment to the ordinance would focus on when it comes to the prohibited sale would be all the people that are around. So in the parking lot or on the roads leading up to that. In the public safety meeting, one of the council members actually said that he lives around there and is constantly seeing people at the gas station, on the roadways, you know, and leaving a mess behind. So this ordinance would definitely be able to focus on those individuals for sure.
And would the, consequence be significant enough to alter their actions for future sale of puppies or cats, do you think?
I would like to think so. So animal services citations are a Class C misdemeanor, and so they can grow, and we do keep a history, like I said. So, you know, if it means potentially citing people every single time they're out there, that's what we'll do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Lisa Turner again. Any other board members with questions about the breeding ordinance? Hearing none. Any citizens with questions about the breeding ordinance? Hearing none, we will go to the quarterly reports. Lily, you're up again.
Yes, thank you. So this is Lily Yap. So got a lot to catch up on because we are covering 2 quarterly reports. I did want to say up front that we have some areas where the live release rate exceeds 100%, and I know that looks kind of funny. So I always like to explain, you know, that doesn't mean that we did not euthanize animals for that month, but it means that animals with a length of stay over a month, which includes both fosters and our on-site population, were also adopted out, contributing to the positive numbers. So, you know, going through just kind of briefly, I wanted to reflect where the key changes in our operations were and how it reflected in our numbers. So February was pretty standard, but it was the end of March where we were at our most limited operations. I believe that was about either the last month in March or the second to last month. And then in April, 1 week after those most restrictive operations, we were able to move to tele-adoptions. But you can see in April 2020 compared to April 2019, our numbers are drastically smaller. You know, for example, our dog intake was 75 compared to 340 in April of last year. So it definitely was an extreme difference. And again, kudos to our community for really stepping up and understanding that when it comes to our essential operations, we had to focus on, you know, aggressive cases, bite cases, injured animals, things like that. So that was a huge help. So in the end of May, we started doing appointments on site again, where we were still limited in the number of people we were able to bring in, but we were starting to have people back inside the building. And of course, that allowed us to be a little more lenient in taking in animals. In June, mid-June, we resumed normal operations. So we had a big jump. So even having only done that for about half a month, the numbers were much more similar to June 2019. And since July 13th, we've been on our more sustainable model with limited admissions. So it has been such an interesting experience because it's like we're transported into the future where we're not having to make those difficult decisions to euthanize for space. And again, just staff has really stepped up in working with more difficult cases that we've never had the capacity to do before. And the results have been pretty amazing. So, like I said, this is not to say that, you know, in the months that we exceeded 100%, we didn't have to euthanize for behavior or medical reasons, but it definitely has been minimized. And it's been a great, I would say one of the few silver linings to our COVID operation is it's been a really great reset for our shelter staff and all the hard work they've all been doing. So. Okay. Any specific questions about the numbers?
Okay, hearing none, we will now move to the citizen comments portion of the agenda. Each citizen may speak for up to 5 minutes on any item not on the agenda by stating their name at this time. Are there any citizens who would like to make public comment? Okay, hearing none, we have now reached the end of our agenda. It is 7:29, and I will now officially adjourn our meeting. Thank you so much to everybody at the staff for doing such a fantastic job, and to everybody who joined us here by phone tonight. Hope we get to see each other in person soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.